Okay, in this session, this is our first one on algebra. So let's just go through a couple of the basics, which should hopefully get you started with the worksheet. So let's just consider an ordinary expression. So 32, say, plus 4 times 1, and we divide that all by 6. That's what's called an arithmetic expression. Okay, it's because we can evaluate this, we can do the maths. So 32 plus 4 divided by 6 is 36 divided by 6, which equals 6. Okay, it comes up, it gives us an exact answer. Now, if we were to write this slightly differently, let's say 32 plus 4y, all divided by 6, this becomes an algebraic expression. We can only evaluate it if we have a particular value of y. So if we have y equals 1, we know it equals 6. But if y was a different number, we come up with a different answer. All right. So that's the basics. That's what algebra means. So let's just think about some of the basics we can do about manipulating things, algebraic expressions. So if we had something that's like 14p minus 3p plus 5p. So p is our letter here. Often you probably see x, but we can put whatever letter, any symbol in that we want. Okay, so what we can do with these terms is we can collect them and simplify it. So this is 14 minus 3 plus 5. So 14 minus 3 plus 5 is 16, right? So 14 minus 3 is 11 plus 5 is 16. So this becomes 16p. Okay, and we can test that. Let's give a value of p. Okay, so if we give a value of p of 2, we should get an answer on this side which is the same as the answer on that side. So let's just hide that away there. So let's give a value of p of 2. So this becomes 14 times 2 minus 3 times 2 plus 5 times 2. And this should be the same as 16 times 2 if we've done our algebra right. And this way, I'm showing you this because this is a good way of testing anything that you've simplified. Okay, and we can put these in brackets if you wish. We can remember BODMAS otherwise. So this becomes 28 minus 6 plus 10. 28 minus 6 is 22, plus 10 is 32, which is the same as 16 times 2. Okay? So it's worked out right. We have done it right, which is just as well. Okay, if we're left with we've got terms which are different powers, then we can't combine it. So if we have 3y plus 5y squared, that cannot be combined to give us 8y cubed or anything. That just doesn't work. Okay, because the powers are different. But what we can do is factorize. We can play around with brackets, and you will get lots more practice of this. Don't worry. So we can see that actually both of these terms have been multiplied by y. We can look at this as being 3 times y plus 5 times y squared. So what we can do is we can take a y outside of the brackets and say this is actually y, open brackets, 3 times 5y. Okay, so this is the same as that. So if we multiply out of the brackets, this then becomes 3y plus 5y squared, which is the same thing. Let's take a little more complicated example of multiplying out of the brackets. So 2y plus 4y minus 3. Now, when we're faced with something like this, we have to do this in a systematic way, so that we basically keep control of what's going on. So what I suggest you do is you go with this term and you do this times this, and then this times this, and then you do this times this, and then this times this. Okay, but let's go through it because I think then it'll make more sense. So let's start off. 2y times y is 2y squared. 2y times minus 3, remember this is minus 3, is then 6y. 2 times minus 3 is minus 6, then we'll multiply the y. Now we can move on to here. Plus 4y, and then 4 times minus 3 is minus 12. Now, as we had with the p's before, we can combine like terms. We can't do anything with this one, but we can combine those two together. So minus 6 plus 4 becomes minus 2. So that is 2y squared minus 2y minus 12. All right. So some basic playing around with algebra. One of the other things that we need to get ourselves realizing is that the rules that we talked about with powers before, those will also apply to algebra. So let's just start off and remind ourselves of that. So x to the power 0, anything to the power 0 is 1. Okay, so if we did that was a to the power 0, it would still be 1. Y to the power 0 would be 1. Anything to the power 0 is 1. Anything to the power 1 is just itself. So x to the power 1 is x, y to the power 1 is y, a to the power 1 is a. If we had x to the power m times x to the power n, that's the same as x to the m plus n. We remember when we're multiplying, we add our powers. So x cubed times x squared would be the same as x to the fifth. Similarly, x to the power m over x to the power n, if you remember that from last time, that's the same as x to the power m minus n. So x cubed divided by x squared is the same as x to the power 3 minus 2, which is x to the power 1. All right, so divide, we subtract, multiply, we add. You may also remember this one as well. So x to the power n to the power m equals x to the n times m. So if that was x squared cubed, that would be x to the power 6. Okay. Now what if we have something like this? X, y to the power m. That would be x to the power m times y to the power m. Okay, so we have to do, we do this gets applied to both things which are in the brackets. We also had anything to a negative number. So let's have x to the minus n. That's the same as 1 over x to the n. So x to the minus 1 is the same as 1 over x. X to the minus 2 is the same as 1 over x squared, etc., etc. Okay, one new one which we didn't really touch on last time, that's when we have fractional powers. So x to the power 1 over n is the same as the nth root of x. Now that might seem a little complicated, so let's just give it an example. So x to the power half is the same as the square root of x. Now when we write the square root, we often don't bother writing the 2 there. X to the power a third would be the cube root of x. Okay, and we can think this makes sense because we can apply our rules over here actually. So if we had x to the power half times x to the power half, when we multiply, we add the powers together. That's the same as x to the power half plus a half. Half plus a half is 1, so x to the power 1, which is x. So the square root of x times the square root of x equals x, right? That makes sense. So let's say if x was 25, the square root of 25 is 5. So 5 times 5 equals 25. Okay, there we go. Right, good luck with the worksheet, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a bit more.